We're going to listen to people talking about their favorite season in different parts of the world. All right? Listen to these people talking about their favorite season. Which places are cool? All right? Listen, please.
Favorite seasons.
My favorite season is spring. It's fairly cool and it rains quite a bit, but it's a good time to see flowers. Jan, Lies, Holland.
I like summer a lot. It's very windy, great for windsurfing, and it doesn't rain at all then. Fuad, Essaouira, Morocco.
Fall is my favorite. It's sunny and cool, and in late October, 150 million butterflies arrive. Juan, Morelia, Mexico.
I love winter. It's extremely cold and it snows a lot, but that's when the Sapporo Snow Festival is. Rie, Sapporo, Japan.
So, what places are cool? Holland, spring in Holland, very good, and fall in Mexico, excellent, very good. Spring in Holland and fall in Mexico, the weather is cool. There are some new words you just heard. Butterfly, maybe it's a new word for you. So this is butterfly, as you can see, butterfly, butterfly. And the activity windsurfing, windsurfing, windsurfing. Do you remember we talked about sports? Should we use go, do, or play with windsurfing? Very good. It ends in ing, so we say go windsurfing. Okay, now let's just go through these people's favorite season one more time. It says, my favorite season is spring. It is fairly cool, and it rains quite a bit, but it's a good time to see flowers. So fairly cool. The second says, I like summer a lot. It's very windy, great for windsurfing, and it doesn't rain at all then. Then means at that time, then means summer. So it's very windy, it's fairly cool. Fall is my favorite season. It's sunny and cool, and in late October, 150 butterflies arrive. And the last says, I love winter. It's extremely cold and it snows a lot, but that's when Sapporo Snow Festival is. Sapporo is a city in Japan. So we have these words, fairly, very, and extremely. What are they? In English, we call them adverbs of intensity. Adverbs of intensity. These are the adverbs that are used before adjectives. Fairly cool, extremely cold. So cold and cool, adjective, extremely and fairly are called adverbs, adverbs of intensity. And make the meaning of the adjective more intense. این کلمات قیدهایی هستن که اولا قبل از صفت استفاده میشن و اینکه معنی صفتمون رو قوی تر میکنن، به شدت میدن. Adverbs of intensity. Let's see what they are. Like we say, the weather is cold. Cold is adjective. The weather is cold. Cold is adjective. We can also say the weather is extremely cold. The weather is extremely cold. Extremely, adverb before adjective. The weather is very cold. Also, we can say the weather is very cold. Very is a little less strong than extremely. Extremely قطعاً قوی تر از very. اگه میخوایم بگیم خیلی سرده، به شدت سرده، we say extremely cold. The weather is really cold. The weather is really cold. Or the weather is pretty cold. The weather is pretty cold, quite cold, fairly cold, and somewhat cold. پس این یه رنجه. هرچی از قیدایی که بالاتر هستن استفاده بکنیم، شدتی که به صفتمون میدیم بیشتره. اگر از این پایینی استفاده میکنیم کمتره. یه کمی سرده، نسبتاً سرده، تا حدی سرده، خیلی سرده، واقعاً سرده، خیلی خیلی سرده. So, one more time please. Extremely, extremely, very, very, really, pretty, quite, quite, fairly, fairly, somewhat, somewhat. فقط حواستون به پرونانسیشن این لغت باشه. quiet نیست. quiet. quiet اون صفتی که داشتیم قبلا، ساکت. quiet an adverb. adverb of intensity. Repeat please. The weather is extremely cold. The weather is extremely cold. The weather is very cold. The weather is pretty cold. The weather is pretty cold. The weather is really cold. The weather is quite cold. The weather is fairly cold. The weather is somewhat cold. Very good. So, for example, we can say the traffic is extremely heavy. The traffic is heavy. Heavy adjective. اگه میخوایم شدت بهش بدیم, we say the traffic is extremely heavy. خیلی سنگینه. ترافیک خیلی سنگینه. The house is big or the house is very big. The house is very big. Very, adverb. Before big, the adjective. She's really beautiful. She's beautiful. She's really beautiful. He's helpful. He's helpful. Helpful means مفیده, آدم که کمک میکنه. He's helpful. He's pretty helpful. He is pretty helpful. The movie was interesting or the movie was quite interesting. Okay, this is another adverb. Her English is good. Her English is fairly good, right? The last is the exam was difficult. The exam was difficult or the exam was somewhat difficult. تا حدی سخت بود. Repeat please. The traffic is extremely heavy. The traffic is extremely heavy. The house is very big. The house is very big. She's really beautiful. She's really beautiful. He's pretty helpful. He's pretty helpful. The movie was quite interesting. The movie was quite interesting. Her English is fairly good. Her English is fairly good. The exam was somewhat difficult. The exam was somewhat difficult. One more time. Extremely heavy. Extremely heavy. Very big. Very big. Really beautiful. Really beautiful. Pretty helpful. Pretty helpful. Quite interesting. Quite interesting. Fairly good. Fairly good. Somewhat difficult. The last is the exam was somewhat difficult. Somewhat difficult. So these are the adverbs of intensity. Just there's one note. Pretty can be an adjective or adverb. Okay, as an adjective, like we say, her dress is pretty. What a pretty garden. Sarah is really pretty. As an adverb, It was pretty hard, very hard. Dinner was pretty good and the weather is pretty hot. پس pretty هم میتونه صفت باشه هم قید باشه. حواسمون به این باشه. Her dress is pretty or Sarah is really pretty.